So, you want to play Baldur's Gate 1? I made a video a few weeks ago trying to get people into Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and I cannot tell you how happy I am that that video reached so many people. A lot of people shared how much they struggle to get into these games due to how different they feel to newer games. So I decided to make a video to help people get into them in a way I thought would be user-friendly. I'm going to run you through the tutorial, character creation, and the beginning of the game because I really think that that's the hardest part. I'll skip all story content so that there won't be spoilers too. Thank you everyone that shared tips and tricks that I could use. If there are things that you notice that I don't talk about, it's probably because I didn't want to overwhelm someone new with a lot of stuff. I was definitely overwhelmed my first playthrough, and it took me longer to learn things than I would have liked. Giving a new player information that they're not ready to utilize yet, I think will be too much here, but feel free to leave or share tips in the comments that I may have missed. At the end of the video, I'll get into more of the overwhelming nitty-gritty stuff. Also, if you want to be overwhelmed with a friend, you can play Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 co-op, which I think is really cool. Not a lot of games this early on, if any, we're making co-op RPGs like this. The way co-op works is that the host character is the one who controls time in combat. I personally have not done a co-op run yet though, but I know a few people who have and loved it. We'll talk about ways that you can control time and pausing in the settings. So some things that I think that everybody should turn on is in the gameplay settings, you could do different things. You should turn on the area map background. It will basically just make it so that while you're looking at the map, it shows this like green mesh basically. It just helps to see where you can walk and where you can't. You can turn it on and off at the top just like super easily, but this keeps it on every single time you turn on the map. I turned on rest until healed and max HP on level up. Super small things that I think people could benefit from. Although some of these options don't work in multiplayer, you do need to take that into consideration if you are playing multiplayer. The biggest thing is going to be your auto pause stuff. So this is where you can really customize the game a lot for your liking. Over here, you can actually turn on auto pause at end of round. And let me explain this to you guys who like Baldur's Gate 3 and want the combat to feel a little bit similar to Baldur's Gate 3. If you love the turn-based combat in Baldur's Gate 3, this might be the option for you. However, I will say play around with it. In Baldur's Gate 1, a turn is 6 seconds, which means that every single time you attack, cast a spell, your character is going to stand there for 6 seconds until they cast. What this will do is basically every 6 seconds, the game will pause and allow you to reorient your characters and pick their next spell. Most people don't play with this on, they just pause at the end of every round, but if you are someone who's struggling early game, turning on end of round might be helpful for you in auto pause. I feel like everyone should turn on enemy sighted and trap found. I cannot just turn them on, okay? Just turn them on. The game will auto pause whenever it sees a trap or whenever an enemy sighted, and it'll give you like a few seconds to just prepare. It's super helpful. Turn it on. I had my difficulty set to normal. Don't feel bad playing this game on easy. Genuinely, it's really hard. You can change the difficulty at any point, so go for it. Although you're probably never going to want to play on insane. You might want to at some point play on normal or core. I like core. I started playing core difficulty when I started Baldur's Gate 2. And even then, at the beginning of that game, it was hard. I had to turn it down to normal and raise it back up after a little while. Now, I do think that everyone should do the tutorial. It is very informative, but it is a lot of information. So I am going to break it down for you because I really am just that sweet. You're welcome. I still think you should do it though, just to get the mechanical practice. Everybody should do the tutorial. Don't even make your character in the tutorial. I spent like 40 minutes in here, and when you're done, it just backs out. So you have to remake it, unless you export it. So honestly, just skip it. Make your character not in the tutorial. Use this area to play around and just see how things are, but don't worry about this. We'll go over character customization later. Tutorial short, but helpful. Do it. Here are the things that they give you in the beginning that are pretty basic. Both games use 2nd edition D&D. For reference, Baldur's Gate 3 uses 5th edition. A lot of the basics are there, but it is different. Pause the game by pressing the spacebar. You will be pressing this all the time. That and tab. And Q, if you're a quick save baby like me. Tab lets you highlight objects and you can see names on the map. It's really helpful. Keep your finger on space, tab, and Q. Kind of like this. Forget your WASD keys. I kept pressing W, trying to move the camera when I first started playing because I was so used to Baldur's Gate 3. The circles around people's feet determine if they're hostile. Green is good, red is hostile. Super helpful when you're out in the wilderness. But if you have auto pause on when you see a hostile target, you should know always when you see someone hostile. I will say though, a lot of times the enemy sees you the same time you see them. So it's hard to get the upper hand unless you know that they're there, which is why you should be queuing, saving constantly. Save at every single point that you possibly can. Buttons to note: I is inventory, J is journal, M is map, R is character sheet. You can find these buttons on the side though, over here. So it's really not that important to remember them. If you hover over them, it'll tell you exactly what they are. So, you know, you're fine. Now, Zan will join your party and show you how to use spells. Now, before we get into this, I want to get into combat a little bit more. I explained earlier that each turn is 6 seconds long. I'm going to go over a little bit more on what that means. Unless your character has speed buffs or items, they will be attacking or casting every 6 seconds. Early game, you don't need to be worrying about characters attacking twice per turn. Just know that your characters will stand there for 6 seconds each turn until they attack. If you click away and move your character or cast something else while you're in the middle of an action at like the 3-second mark, the 4-second mark, the 5-second mark, it will cancel whatever they were doing and make you wait again. Most important thing early game is just wait and let your characters cast their spells. I cannot tell you early game how much I was moving my party around or canceling their spells because I did not realize 6 seconds. Using a spell is super easy, don't overthink it. You press your little spell bar down here, you pick a spell, you click on the person you want to use it on, and then you'll see your little spell next to your character portrait if you're going to cast it. And when it's gone, like when you don't see it anymore next to your little character's portrait, it means they've cast it. You can move them or do whatever, do another turn, you know. Learning spells is also super easy. You'll pick up spell scrolls on your adventure constantly. If it's green, a character can learn it. Go to your inventory, right click, and then click on it to write magic. This is how you inspect most things in game, like you just right click on it. It's how you read all the little descriptions. So you'll be using this a lot. Now, when you're learning a spell, if you're on core difficulty or higher, there is a chance that you'll fail to learn the spell. I don't suggest core difficulty for a first-time player. There are a lot of things that just make it a bit more challenging, and since you can change it at any point, I really do suggest starting on a lower difficulty just to get your bearings, unless you're used to isometric CRPGs on this level. If you don't want to fail the spell, raising your intelligence will help you. There's potions and stuff that you can do that, or, you know, characters with higher intel. After you learn a spell, it'll be in your little spell book over here. It won't be active until you rest one more time. You see how the spells are grayed out? Think about it like right before you go to sleep, you learn the spell and you can use it in the morning. Then we get to identifying items. All items are blue that need to be identified. Don't wear unidentified stuff. Most of it's cursed. A lot of it is cursed. They're trying to get you to wear it unidentified. The problem is that early game, you're probably not gonna have a lot of money to identify things, but it is worth it. Early game, identified gear is gonna be better than what you're wearing, or it's gonna be cursed. You wanna right click on an item to identify it, same as learning a spell. In order to identify an item, you need someone in your party who knows the identify spell, who has learned the spell, or has a scroll in their inventory somewhere. If it's there, you will be able to identify. If it's not there, then it'll just be grayed out, so you'll know. If you don't have any of that, you need to find a church to identify stuff, and it will cost you. Early game, you'll be doing this a lot. You won't have someone who knows how to identify spells, and you won't pick up scrolls. So you'll be heading to churches quite constantly. If you're not saving and loading as well, you'll be heading to churches quite constantly to resurrect your character. So that's why I suggest saving and loading every single time you die. If more than like 2 people die early game, honestly, if more than 1 person dies early game, load the last save. If you're queuing all the time, load it. It's gonna be... My first playthrough of Baldur's Gate, I lost my companion members over and over and over and over and over and over and over. And actually bringing them back to life takes like 25 to 30 minutes of game time. That's just not worth it when I'm losing people to the dumbest stuff. Early game, identify everything that you can, sell all the stuff that you don't want that you've identified. Boom, more money for identifying stuff later. Boom, boom. Are we feeling overwhelmed yet? I promise you'll get the hang of it. At the beginning, it's a lot because they want to help you with every type of class you may have picked up or have in your party companion-wise. So they dump a lot of information on you, and I'm dumping a lot of information on you too. But you'll start the game with basically you and your companion thief Imoen. So whatever class you choose, you'll have a little bit of time to get into, and you'll have a thief to have fun and play around with as well. You will figure out so much as you go. The problem is not getting overwhelmed and boggled down by all of this little stuff right at the get-go will make the experience a lot easier and better for you. Now, Bronwyn's gonna join your party and basically teach you the exact same thing, but for priests. Mages have mage spells and priests have cleric spells. They're in 2 different sections right next to each other. Same concept, however, and you'll find all your spells, mage or cleric, in the same little area down here. Biggest thing Bronwyn will teach you is turning undead, which is really helpful, and I didn't really understand the concept when I first started playing. If an enemy is undead, so if they're a zombie, skeleton, ghoul, lich, demi-lich, vampire, or wraith, if you turn undead, which is literally just clicking this button and making sure it's on, you can kill or cause undead to flee on the spot. You can move around while turning undead, but watch out because if you have party AI on, sometimes the characters will cancel your undead to attack. This happened to me constantly where I would basically click my character's turn undead and then my character would just go and cast something because the AI wasn't recognizing turn undead as a combat action. So it was trying to do another combat action. So just be wary. Turn AI off whenever you're trying to turn undead. We'll talk about having AI party on a little bit later. Imoen will now join your party and teach you how to be a thief. Noticeable things about thief is that pickpocketing will fail a lot unless you level it up. Same with unlocking doors and chests. You have to level up these thief skills. You'll start to see noticeable differences once you start putting points into them, but early game you're gonna fail to open up pretty much like a lot of stuff. I tried to spam click to open stuff because sometimes I'd get lucky and Imoen would unlock a door, a chest on like her 7th spam click. Don't even try to pickpocket early game. I mean, I never leveled up pickpocketing. Pickpocketing is one of those things that there's some really cool items in game that you can get if you pickpocket. You just need to know what they are though. Like you can't pickpocket every single person or you're gonna aggro literally every single town. There were a lot of times when I was playing that people were like, hey, you should pickpocket that man outside. And he would have like such a cool item on him that I would never have gotten in any other part of the game. And I was like, how would I have known this? How would I have known this? So there are a lot of things like that. If you want to have fun with pickpocketing, you should put points into it. I just wanted to be able to find traps and unlock doors, and that was the number one most important thing for me. It's going to be different for whatever party you want to basically establish, so play around with it. Now, with finding traps, make sure you stand still in an area for a second. Imoen or any thief won't be able to spot traps while you're moving around. The amount of times I just walked into a trap because I didn't give Imoen a second to find the trap was abundant. It happened like 95% of the time. If you stand there for 6 seconds, Imoen will basically search for traps, but if you're moving, you're in an action. So Imoen is not looking for traps. Thieves aren't looking for traps. You have to give them that 6 seconds to look for traps. Each character has special abilities, which you can find at the very end over here. For thieves, they can place traps. Mints can go berserk as a ranger. Look at your team's special abilities and familiarize yourself with them. Don't be shy about using stuff that you can only use once a day. You will be resting a lot. Rest whenever you want, honestly. The only time I would say not to rest is early game before you get to Nashkel. Once you pick up Chihira and Khalid, they have a timed quest to Nashkel. Same if you pick up Montaron and Zar. They need to get to Nashkel by a certain amount of in-game days. So my first time playing, I accidentally went north for like 20 days, and Chihira and Khalid will mention that they have a time quest at a certain point, but by the time they mention it, you might be too far from Nashkel to even get there in time. But for the most part, you won't be dealing with time quests. Rest as much as you can. Rest all the time. I rest whenever I even am a little bit tired and I'm running out of spells. You just never know when you're gonna get put in a really precarious situation, so it's just better to be rested. And Q! I cannot stress. Save, 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 save. To grab your whole party, press this party button on the bottom or drag and highlight, you know, who you want to grab. You can also press shift and click the characters on the side you want to control on the top. Now, I'm going to fight this average battle in a way that I normally would to give you a sense of combat in this game. My game is just set to auto pause whenever I see hostile, that's it.
Hello? Life is so hollow.
What do you need?
Go for the eyes, Boo! Go!
Army. Remember that it takes a moment for the trap to become visible to me.
Butt kicking for goodness!
Now, do you see what I did here? I prepped everyone for their first round, and then I let the party AI take over for round 2. You can turn on the party AI down here at the bottom. A lot of old players hate the AI, and I understand why. It's a bit wonky, but I actually really like having it on. I tend to forget to control one member of the party every turn, so I usually just leave party AI on and I work around it. When I'm in a serious battle, however, I am literally pausing after every turn and spending a bit of time prepping for each round. It's similar to Baldur's Gate 3 for me, honestly. It's just a bit different to get into, but it's very easy to turn it into a similar thing for you with the settings like we talked about earlier. And just your play style. I really just think early game is the hardest part. That's why I'm so adamant about wanting to teach people to play and get into these games, because they're such good RPGs, and you will not be having the same issues early game that you have late game. Like, your characters will have like 70, 80 health, and you just won't be going into the front line with your little weak spellcasters anymore because you want them to use their little bonkety bonk monk sticks. Also, notice how everybody got stuck in Jaheira's spell. Jaheira's spell, by the way. They all got stuck in Jaheira's spell, my own team member's spell. Yeah, that will happen. Be careful with AoE or entangle spells. The biggest thing I can tell you is be mindful of casting things like Fireball. You will hit your entire team with it. It's helpful to kind of learn how far away some of these spells are meter-wise. Maybe just load up a save, go into a field and cast Fireball and get a distance of how far away it is from you. You know what I mean? Sometimes party AI is a bit buggy too. If a character is a bit too far away, sometimes they just won't attack. One of the reasons I would just never rely on only party AI. Also, you will get caught in a lot of AoE spells with party AI on. Now, you can go in and change your AI scripts, which is really helpful. If you do not want certain party members casting certain spells with AI on, you can go in and change all of that. I never did, and a lot of people recommended to me that I do. I just never really minded that my party members would cast things because I was resting so frequently. And before every serious battle, we would always rest, so I would always have all my spells and stuff. There are different mods and stuff that make the party AI better as well, so your team will like automatically pre-buff. It's pretty cool. However, I'm not going to go into modding in this video because I don't think that a new player would want to mod Baldur's Gate 1 to play it as a first playthrough. Now that we're down here, we should probably talk about how you look around. Hold tab to see places that you can loot or open, along with characters' names as well. You can press this button over here to toggle it on, or you can hold down tab to see like what's in the area. Make sure to press this little quick look button on the bottom as well. It just shows all the loot on the ground in like a way that's super easy to pick up. I have this on all the time. I never turn this off. If it's accidentally turned off, you can find it down here. And that'll basically be the end of your tutorial. We can now move into character creation. Starting off with gender. This is a cosmetic choice. It does not matter. However, like the game states, it affects your romance. There's only romance with EE characters in BG1, so it's not important. However, you carry your character over from Baldur's Gate 1 to 2. So it does. Here are all the characters that you can romance for both sides. I will say male main characters have the best romance. You can romance Jaheira, Aerie. Us girly pops almost had Hair Delise, but it was cut content. There just isn't very good female romances. There are bi mods I think you can get that turn everyone bi, but I have not went into modding myself, so no modding for a first player. There's also extra modded romance stuff too. Modded companions, modded side content, but I'm not going to go into mods. I think it's too much for a new player. Now, be careful when you're picking your portrait. Lots of these characters are in-game already as companions. Like this one is your sister Imoen. This one is Jaheira. I don't know why they let you look like Jaheira. You can change it whenever you want though, so if you accidentally choose a companion portrait, you can just change it later. Or you can upload one, which I think is super cute. Like if you want to make your own custom character and upload it, cool concept. Now, race. Not too important, but this affects your class afterwards, so that's why it's important. Certain classes will be blocked off by certain races, so play around here. People will react to you based off of your race, but not as strongly as in BG3. It really is more for class plus minus stats. Different races will give you different positive and negative traits. If you have a specific class in mind that you want to play, try to pick a race that has plus benefits to whatever you need. There's no drow. No drow. But trust me, in this Baldur's Gate, you would not want to be a drow in the surface world. My god. Ooh, the treatment of drow is a lot different. The drow are a lot eviler in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 than they are in 3. That's for certain. If you thought they were evil in 3, yeah, you just wait. Also, if you notice that I'm reading my script while filming this video, that's because I am reading my script while I'm filming this video. Usually I write a really loose script for my videos and work around it, but this time I wanted to deliver you guys information in a way that wasn't going to be overwhelming, and my ADHD is pretty overwhelming, so I had to write out word for word what I wanted to say and edit the ever-loving hell out of it until it felt like it was in a format that was, you know, comprehensible. So yeah, sorry. Usually I try to memorize my script a little bit more, not just read it, but it's a lot, man. I didn't want to cover myself up for most of it, so. Now your class, oof. This is overwhelming if you weren't already overwhelmed. So each of these classes have like 4 subclasses, and remember, whatever race you picked is showing you specific classes. Every class is so fun, you're gonna want to get into it. Read them all, play around with your favorites. Maybe go back and edit your race once you found ones that you really like. You can't change your class at any point in the game, and if you carry your character through to BG2, you're also stuck with the same class, so be careful. Take your time here. There are some important things to note. Sorcerers, mages can't cast if they are wearing armor, and they can only use slings and ranged weapons, no bows. They can use like a staff as a melee weapon. You're never going to be wanting to put your sorcerers and clerics and mages into melee. It was my biggest mistake. I would give my cleric a staff and I would send her to the front lines and she would immediately die. You're going to want to keep anyone who's not wearing armor win the back. Thieves can't wear anything heavy either, only light armor. I did find that the game favors swords, bows, and staffs as epic weapons, but the game has such a massive amount of items, so you really never feel like you're not getting named epic gear. There's so much of it. It actually becomes overwhelming. I started hoarding stuff just because it had a name, and then realized I had to sell things because there were so much named gear. It was impossible to keep everything. I played as a cleric who was a priest of Talos. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd suggest a ranger, fighter, thief, paladin, warrior. There's a lot of good spellcasting companions in the game, and you're gonna be weaker as a spellcaster, more likely to die. And when you die, the main character dies, it's game over. But honestly, there's no real better class. Don't play monk. Don't play monk. That's the one thing I can tell you. Don't play monk. They're weak in 2nd edition D&D. It's just not the same as Baldur's Gate 3, in which you're like a punching wheelhouse. I wouldn't go into multi-classing on a first playthrough. You can if you want to. It's not that hard. It's just not the same as Baldur's Gate 3. Some multi-classes that aren't that hard are fighter/cleric, fighter/druid, fighter/thief. Dual classing, I recommend even less, and I will explain why. If you want a dual class, know this, and it's already complicated. You change your class at that point and only level your new class from that point on. You lose all your skills from the old class until your new class is 1 level higher than your original class. Thank you for the YouTube comment on this. I never got into it because it confused me a bit dealing with Imoen, my companion in-game who dual classes. Honestly, if you want to dual class, know that a ton of companions do it, so you really don't need to do it yourself unless you really want to. The alignment system. Your alignment system is also going to be dependent on what class you pick. Some specializations are evil and some are good. So be careful on when you pick one, you read the description. It will change what alignment you have offered to you. Now, if you want a neutral good party, you will have to be good. And if you want evil companions, then you will have to be neutral evil. If you're playing the game caring a lot about what companions you're going to use, I would do a little research beforehand. Minsc and Jaheira aren't really going to be down with you being evil. Characters like Viconia can actually be redeemed from being evil, and it's encouraged. But some companions are just full evil and will eventually fight the good members in your party, so do note it. Abilities. This is a fun one. First thing you're going to want to do is re-roll. You see that button? Re-roll. Before doing anything, re-roll until you get a number in the 80s, high 80s or 90s. I would just keep re-rolling until you get a number in the 90s. If you get pretty high numbers, store it and then you can recall it later. If you do not reroll and you miss this part like I did my first time, you will probably have like 73 allocated when you could have had 93 allocated points. You will be missing 20 points that you could have put into strength, your health, intelligence, etc. This is so important. I was so upset that I missed this my first playthrough. This is a big thing. This is a big deal. As you can see, I got really lucky. I rolled the 93 like right away. I continued to roll literally to show you how random it was. My second time making a character, I was here for 40 minutes. Now getting into these stats, I'm gonna make some notes next to each one to help you out on which one you think you should dump your points into. Mages and Bard, you're gonna want intelligence. Cleric, Druids, you're gonna want wisdom. Anything that's not a spellcaster, dump it into strength. You don't need much intelligence if you aren't playing a mage or a ward. You don't need much wisdom if you aren't playing a cleric or a druid. You don't need much strength unless you're planning on fighting melee, basically. So anyone who can't wear armor, you don't want them fighting melee. Druids are a good example of someone who at the early game, Jaheira is not going to be making much progress as your tank, but late game, Jaheira is a pretty good tank and she can spellcast. You can drop your con to 15 when you're not playing warrior, paladin, or ranger. Other classes just don't gain past that point, I believe. Every class benefits from dexterity, so if you have extra points to put into anything, put them into dex. If you don't plan on being the face of the party, you probably will though. You can drop charisma. It affects shop prices and some quest rewards, I think. However, the first person at the top of your party is the one who engages in dialogue. So if you have a frontline tank, you always want to be at the front of your party. You may want to just pick a companion with high charisma to do the talking. I always just put points into charisma. I like being a charismatic character myself. You're going to have enough if you roll in the 90s to do whatever you want. So just have fun. For your skills, honestly, just put them into what you want. You'll get more chance to put points into proficiency and skills as you play, so don't worry too much about this here. I think early game, it's going to be hard for you to even know what kind of weapon you want to use. So, you know, just put points where you think you're going to want to. If you're playing like a thief, you might want to put points into opening locks and doors for early game. It's going to be more helpful than pickpocketing and things like that. Everything else you can have fun with, you know, choose whatever you want and enjoy. Hey. It's me again. The first part took a while to film, so I'm filming this part on a different day. Now we're gonna get into the tutorial and the actual game and tips and tricks that I can give you just as like a first-time player playing the game that, you know, wasn't part of the last two parts. So first things first, let's run through the beginning of the game. I will say the first part of this game walks you through a lot. The tutorial is very, very, very helpful, but just starting a new game, the beginning of the game helps you with a lot of stuff. Now I'm gonna make the quickest character in the world. Okay, so once you're actually in the game, you're going to be brought to the city of Candlekeep. Beautiful, lovely area. This is my home. Treat it with care. Water the flowers on the way out. Anyway, you could just skip through like most of the side quests in this area, or you could do them, gain a little bit of experience, gain a little bit of stuff, and make your way on the journey in a better and more learned fashion, which is pretty great. So I would recommend talking to everyone in this area, doing all the little side quests. It'll be really helpful to learn things. And this is going to be very overwhelming, but the game has tutors littered like all throughout Candlekeep that you can talk to. And each of the tutors go over different things about the game. But I find that a lot of these tutors just give you very basic stuff. Like you probably don't need to know about movement. However, you might want to learn more about combat rounds. So, you know, talk to every tutor and see if there's something that piques your interest, and they'll tell you more about it. Controlling and moving around in this game is going to be super simple.
The sun rises once more to cast our shadows on the land.
You're going to want to hold the mouse button and drag around to move the camera around, kind of like that. To move your character, you're going to left click. You can also right click, it doesn't matter. You can't move the camera with the WASD keys, so don't even try. I was very, very, very much doing that at the beginning of Baldur's Gate 1, after Baldur's Gate 3. And if you press W, it will open your mage spells, so you will learn. You will learn. But like talk to every single person here and get a good sense of like how pressing buttons on your keyboard is going to work. So like hold down tab here. You can see that you can now see everyone's names and the doors that you can interact with and the little searchable objects. This is going to be one of your biggest things when playing Baldur's Gate, is that there's going to be a ton of little searchable objects like this that are going to give you an item down here This is the area that you're looting, and this is your inventory. So you can grab the item and move it to your inventory. And then it'll be in your inventory. Boom! I was talking about temples and churches in Baldur's Gate. This is going to be one of your temples. All priests are going to say a similar thing, so you're going to know when you go to a temple. And when you get to a temple, they're going to offer you a bunch of stuff. They're going to offer you healing. They're going to offer you spells. They're going to offer you a donation area, which I don't even, fuck, no. They ain't getting a dime of my money, okay? You can look up the benefits of donating to a temple and tutorials and online. You can also buy stuff and sell stuff at a temple, although they don't normally let you sell a lot of stuff. And you can identify gear at a temple as well. For the most part, you're going to be raising dead here constantly at the very beginning of the game if you're not loading your quick saves. So you're going to have to be finding your way to a temple like this and resurrecting a character. This is also a very important time to talk about quick saving. Q. Q, 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 Q. You can press it 1,000 times. You can press it 1,000,000 times. I could press it 1,050 times, man. It's the quickest thing ever. And if you want to load your quick save, you can press L and it'll load up the last save. It's so quick. It will make modern games feel like a joke. If you wanted to quit out of this game, you could literally relaunch it and get back here in less than 10 seconds. Some of these guys are just here to literally teach you stuff, so do talk to them. These guys are here to teach you how to do like basic training. You can understand combat a little bit by watching this battle. See how they just kind of stand there and then attack? My character is attacking. You can see up here on her little portrait that I have the staff. She is attacking. That's how I can tell that she's attacking. Do be mindful about stealing. This game has like a very fine line with what it considers stealing. Sometimes I'll be in a house like this and there will be chests and I can loot from them very easily and nobody will care. But sometimes there will be chests inside of a house like this, and if you're in a city, you will aggro everyone. I would just say if you're going to take anything from anyone's house and there are people inside, you should save before you try to take it. Opening up an item is simple. When you see this little icon, it means you can search something. You're going to find a lot of objects like rings and stuff in the game. You can equip them, but they're just really there for selling purposes. You're going to want to sell this. You're going to find rings that actually have good stats on them, but these are not them. They're just things to sell. Another tutor. They're all over. I genuinely recommend talking to all of them. I talked to all the tutors when I first played, and it was a lot of information, which is why I'm trying to help you a bit so that you don't have all that information dumped on you. One of the simplest things in this game is the quest and the journal. Now, I wish this was organized differently, but it is not. You can add entries to your journal over here, but for the most part, they will tell you like big things that happen throughout your game about the story. Your quests are going to be all of the stuff that you basically get throughout your game. So like, let's say I talked to Belt right here and I picked up his quest to go get a sword from the barracks. It would now show up in my quest log over here and you could press it and read more about each quest. I will say the quest log gets a little bit overwhelming because you can't sort it by date acquired or name, so it's all just going to be random and it's going to be a little overwhelming after a while once you have a lot of quests in certain chapters. Do note that throughout your journey, some stuff is going to be locked. I'm trying desperately to make my way to something locked. Constantly, little areas like this have a ton of loot that you can find, and if you have someone that can open locks, remember Imoen, or if you make a character who is a thief, you will maybe get something really cool. See how everybody's sleeping here so nobody gets aggro when I take the stuff from their chest. This nobleman might mind if I take his stuff though. So when you get to an inn, they're going to have different rooms that you can rest in. I almost always rest in the royal room. It's not that expensive compared to every other room, although it really doesn't matter. You can buy and sell stuff at vendors, and you can drink and get rumors that you can learn more about the town and the area. You will get drunk though, so do be mindful. And if you drink too much, they will literally tell you that they're not going to serve you anymore. But you can learn a little bit about the area if you drink and learn more about like different quests or stuff that is, you know, to come. Now, once you get here, you'll start your journey with Imoen. One of the first things I did was literally explore every map. You don't have to. I just hated seeing all this black, and I wanted everything to be explored. Now, as you explore these maps, however, you will run into random enemies and random things. You want to be resting a lot. The rest button is down here on the bottom. And you want to be careful because there are certain quests in this game that are timed, and characters will prompt you and push you to kind of hurry up. I didn't talk about this earlier, but your journal also sometimes has like little things that are really cute that will just come up. There's also things about the main story that you'll have. This is just a prologue. I'm not showing you chapter 1 because I don't want you to get spoilers. Your quest log will also have important events. The one reason I adding journal entries earlier is because if you're someone like me who constantly forgets something, adding in a journal entry could be really helpful, or you can edit journal entries, which is really nice, and add something in. Baldur's Gate 1 is not 4-person queue. It is 6 people to a party, which is really nice, and it gives you a lot of companion interaction. You're going to want to put your tanks at the top of your party. They're going to be the ones that move first. You can also have different party formations, so when you press your party, you'll have a different screen down here. You don't really need to worry about any of these buttons. I never do. You could just basically make your entire team attack something if you like press the button and then press the thing you wanted to attack. Or if you wanted to talk to someone, you could press the talk button, and then if you can see the little icon. You'll be able to change your team's formations down here, which is basically how you walk. You can actually change the formations shown available down here by right-clicking, and it'll give you a bunch more that you can try out and, you know, play around with, so you can make your default ones different. Really cool. I recommend playing around with formations and changing who's at the front of your party and who's at the bottom. However, do note that the person at the top is the one who's going to engage in dialogue. People always told me to put my tanks at the front though, because, you know, they are taking damage and they are getting into battle first. When you are on a map like this too, it's important because the enemy sees you at the same time you see it. So a lot of times they'll aggro the first person they see. So if the first person they see isn't your tank, they might aggro your spellcaster if they're the top of your party's lineup over there. I wanted to go into combat a little bit more because I didn't really get into it in the tutorial or anything. Combat is similar to Baldur's Gate 3. However, you are using 2nd edition D&D instead of 5th edition D&D, so it's different. Now, in order to understand Baldur's Gate, we have to talk about THACO. THACO is something that I've struggled to understand for a really long time, but THACO means 2-hit armor class 0. THACO. You are subtracting the AC of the opponent from your THACO, and that is what you need to hit that armor class. Okay? So as you play the game, you are going to have an armor class score and a THACO score. And as you go through the game, this is going to change. So like, this is a tutorial based character, right? Our character way later on has a armor class score of -3 and a THACO score of 0. I booted into a rough save over here, my god. So what you're doing is you're subtracting the AC of the opponent from your THACO. And that is what you need to roll to hit. Okay, so let's say that my THACO is 20, like it is right here at the beginning of the game. And I come across an enemy that has an armor class 10. 20 minus 10. I need to roll a 10 to hit. It becomes a little bit more complicated when you start getting into the negative numbers because it's like negative and negative, right? So let's say my THACO is -6 and the enemy's armor class is -20, which can happen, by the way. You can go really, really, really far into the negative armor classes. It will be -6 minus -10, which is 4. Honestly, THACO and armor class is something that confused me a lot, especially coming from Baldur's Gate 3, because you really need to be thinking about it like the opposite of the way you've been thinking about it. Just remember that you want your armor class and your THACO to be as low as possible. You want gear that is lower, not higher, just for those two. Now, for the basics of your party, you can really build whatever party you want, but you are going to have a hard time if you're not filling roles. We had a bit of a rough time because my team was very particular. My Baldur's Gate 1 team worked very well because Khalid worked as my tank. But in Baldur's Gate 2, I didn't have a tank, and I ended up having to constantly before battles cast a bunch of summons to make up for the fact that I had no tank. You can play the game however you want, yet I highly recommend having someone who can tank. There's a bunch of classes that you can kind of tank as, so I would recommend looking up tank classes and tank companions. I would also recommend having a thief. If you can't disarm traps and unlock chests and doors, you will be needing to carry around spells to do it. And if you're not doing that, then you will just miss a ton of stuff and a ton of... You could even pickpocket too, which you'll be missing gear pickpocketing wise. And it's just missed opportunities, man. There's so many doors in this game that lead to such interesting little encounters, and I wouldn't have been able to get in if I didn't have Imoen, my thief, there to pick the lock. Save and rest all the time. Literally, save every 5 seconds. I'm going to keep saying it because it's so important. Spam Q constantly. At the beginning of the game, until you get to Nashkel, that's really like your biggest worry about time quest is Nashkel. Now, this is a normal combat battle. Just waiting for my team to make moves. I think early game is pretty simple as long as you are queuing constantly. I say queue after every battle. Make sure everyone is also always equipped with a ranged weapon at all times, or they will switch to melee. You really don't want your spellcasters in melee combat. Like, Imoen will run out of arrows, and when she does, she will just start attacking with her fists because she only has a ranged weapon on her. That's another thing to be mindful of. You're going to be constantly running out of stuff like that. Notice how long it takes Imoen just to like attack. So long. 6 seconds. Yeah, this is something I forgot to talk about. This is your activity log. It's going to tell you everything about your attacks and the enemy's attacks, and you're going to want to be mindful of it. You can open it, you can make it big, you can make it small. I usually have it like this small, and I'm just keeping a close eye on it. If you don't know what happened in battle and you need to pause for a second and take a look at your activity log, that's usually what I do. You're going to find companions on the road constantly that you can pick up and just bring with you on your travels. And this is kind of the fun of Baldur's Gate. There are so many companions that you can just leave a lot of them on the side of the road. If you find one that you like more, then just leave them. Now, one thing to note is that a lot of your companions are going to have very little health at the beginning of the game, and that is going to be your biggest challenge. If you explore this whole first beginner map, you are going to stumble upon 2 companions, and these 2 companions have very little health. One of them has 4 health, and if he gets hit basically at all, he's gonna die. It may be tempting to just put him in combat and let him use his little knife right here that he has equipped, but you do not want to do that. If you have party AI on, he's just gonna run into combat and use his little knife because it's the only thing that he has on. But this is where you need to have melee weapons on your spell casting characters, because party AI will just kill Zar. Zar is going to run into that battle, and even if I click him away, he is still going to try to move back in and attack because he only has one way of attacking, so he's trying to attack. You really want to keep spellcasters really far back and just cast spells with them. Now, they will have no spells at the beginning of the game, and they will be pretty much useless, but still, if you can get them in a sling, please get them in a sling. It will make a world of a difference. This will probably be your starting party when you start the game if you are just playing canonically, and you'll probably pick up Jaheira and Khalid next if you're following the game. This is an unidentified item. You can put it on but you need a scroll to identify it. This is what we were talking about in the tutorial. You'll pick up notes all the time in this game, and when you read them, they might update your journal. So do be mindful to read all of the notes that you come across. Books will be different. This is like a book. This game has thousands of books just about random things, and you can just find more about the lore of the world from it. I find a lot of these really interesting. I read one on Mistra that really made my playthrough of Baldur's Gate feel different when I read about how corrupt the previous Mistra was in the books. You want to be mindful of these bears too, because if you get too close, they will kill your entire team. But this is actually a good time for us to show you that if you're not careful, you will get absolutely decimated by something in the wild. I knew it was gonna happen. I didn't even. The bears are something that you should watch out for at the beginning of Baldur's Gate. Just stay away from all the bears. You're also gonna want to try to get a full party as quick as possible. So make your way to Jahir and Khalid. Make your way to wherever it tells you and find 6 people before you go exploring. It's just gonna make the game a significant amount harder. And also, you're just gonna be missing gaining XP with people. That was something that was a little bit weird in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, is I had the same party throughout 1 and 2 of the game, which means that I carried my characters over. But at the end of Baldur's Gate 2, a lot of my companions already were dipping into like really high level spells, and it was because I had them with me the entire time. Meanwhile, Keldorn, I had added to the party very late, and he's like 3 levels lower than everyone else because he didn't get all of that XP that we were getting at the beginning. The game kind of starts him at a certain level, and he suffers due to it. He's never going to get more XP than any of the rest of us, unless he's by himself, and he's never going to be. Your team will split XP between all of you. So when it says you're getting 65 XP, you are splitting that 65 XP between all 4 of your characters. I was so inclined to just like go north, go south, go east, go west when I first got to this map. And I will say, don't do that. Just explore the maps that you get to, try to get to Jahir and Khalid, and enjoy what you have here, because once you get your 6 party members, I swear the map opens up, you can do whatever you want, but the game really wants you to get to the Friendly Arms Inn as like the tutorial section, and you will die to like random things like bears, and yeah, just get to Jahir and Khalid. If you really want to explore, don't worry, this game is like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours. The map opens up more and more as you go, so there will be locations here and here and here and here and here and here. Some stuff is DLC, and I didn't do it until late game, like Olgot's Beard, and look at that map. I couldn't really go over here because of the water, which is a shame, because I would have loved to have this whole map unlocked, even though I'm literally just playing the tutorial. Okay. In order to move maps, you want to get to the corners of the map, and you'll see this little icon pop up, and you can move over to the maps next to you. Now, when you go to a map, it will show you where you are based off of this symbol. So you are right here, and everything that is blue, you will be able to travel to. So we can't get to the Friendly Arms Inn because we have to move a little bit closer. So we can go here. Sometimes you'll get waylaid by enemies like this, where you're not entirely on one map or the other, you're in between maps. And you need to basically defeat the little encounter on the screen first in order to move to the next map. Now, these can be, unfortunately, very detrimental for an early party if you're not careful. Especially this early party, who's like not at all ranged, and I should have bought some gear, but I didn't because I was playing a tutorial. You're not going to get that happen every time. So we could travel this time and we might not get waylaid by any enemies. You'll have NPCs like this on your journey that kind of like point you in the right direction or are pointing you to things. You'll also have signs on the road that will be kind of like telling you which way to go. The most important thing is keep saving. Do you see that I've already died twice? Do you see how important it is to constantly queue? If you don't queue, the game doesn't do it for you. So you will auto save on the corners of maps, and that's it. Okay, now we got to this map. We can now go to this map. One of your hardest and most challenging fights is right here in this city, right when you're trying to get to Jahir and Khalid. So do be careful. Do be very careful. It took me a bunch of attempts and a bunch of cheesing on every single playthrough I do. But a lot of times you'll get to areas like this, which are little cities or little towns, and they'll have shops or churches inside, temples that you can go to, which is really, really, really nice. This is where you're going to kind of want to bring your gear to sell and or your stuff to identify and or your people to resurrect, whatever. Now, these are things to note in combat that I think are helpful for everyone. If you are in a fight with spellcasters, you want to try to go for them first. Cast, summons, and then buff, so that your summons get buffed too. You're going to be doing a lot of buffing in this game, so you're going to kind of want to learn some of your buffing spells. There's very specific ones like Defensive Harmony. You have all of these spells in Baldur's Gate 1, like 5, 6, 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells, but you will not reach any of this until Baldur's Gate 2 or later. 9th level spells, 8th level spells only come in Throne of Baal, which is the end game for Baldur's Gate 2. Pre-buffing is a lot more of a thing in Baldur's Gate 2, that's for sure. Bouncing AoE spells, area of effect spells, are going to be your best friend. Things like sleep early game are super effective. If you can get your hands on some bouncing AoE spells that will like bounce from person to person, because if two characters on the map are basically close enough, the AoE spell will bounce to them, or if you have like a radius, it will hit them, right? Spells like that are going to be really helpful, because the biggest thing about this game that's really hard is if you get stunned or stuck, or if your character is in any way, shape, or form panicked, they can't move, or you can't control them. If you get held like hold person, it's a crit every single time someone hits you. So you will go down in like less than 5 seconds if you get held and everyone is aggroed on you. It's really important to know your debuffs as well. Know what spells are going to dispel other spells. So know that you have to maybe use resist fear before a battle, or know that you have to remove fear in the middle of a battle if you're really struggling with a certain battle, for instance. You might need to equip spells for just a specific battle, but that's why I'm like so adamant about quick saving, because this game is going to feel hard sometimes with certain battles, and I adjusted my playstyle a lot. Equipped to different spells for very specific battles, equipped to different gear. Get Druid's Insect Plague. If you have a Druid in your party, get Insect Plague. There's certain spells that are going to be really, really, really good in Insect Plague, Sleep. Those are them. Lots of AoE spells are really good. If you can get any AoE spell that doesn't damage your party and just damages everyone else, it's really great. But things like Insect Plague are really good because they will cancel other people's actions. So let's say a spellcaster is in the middle of casting a spell, but they have Insect Plague on them. The Insect Plague has a huge chance of canceling that person's spell so that they have to restart it or they lose it. If your spell gets canceled, so like let's say you get hit while you're spell casting, there's a chance that you will lose your spell. And when that happens, your character will go, oh, lost the spell, or say something. And you can see it in the activity log at the bottom. And when this happens, basically you just lose the spell, you have to recast another one, and you won't have it, like you lose it. That's why you don't want spellcasters in combat. You want your spellcasters in the back, you want them with slings, or with bolts, or with arrows, whatever they use, whatever your companion uses. If a fight has started and it's too big, try to cast slow. Doom is another great one. There are some really good spells in this game that you really just want to play around with everything. Some spells are gonna end up like screwing you over a little bit, but some spells are going to be really beneficial, and once you use them and realize how beneficial it's going to be, it's going to change your party. It's going to change the way you play. Spells like Fireball are going to be really helpful, but you're really going to want to understand the range. I recommend going out to like an area like this where you have a lot of space and casting AoE spells to figure out their range. So you can like cast Fireball and figure out its range and how far away it's going to hit. Because like, let's say you cast Fireball and you want it to hit here. It's going to hit most of your party on the very edge of the attack. And it's going to suck because it's going to do a hell of a lot of damage. I was talking about bouncing spells earlier. This is really important with your companions too, because bouncing spells don't just apply to like the enemy team. If you wanted to cast sleep at one person, you wanted it to bounce off a bunch of homies, you need to be careful because people can cast stuff right back at you and it will bounce off all your homies. If I'm in a battle, I will very much split up my team and move us into like positions. So let's say that the person I want to fight is over here. I would put Khalid and Minsk on the front line, Meru would be kind of back here, and Imoen would be over here. I have no proper spells that I can show you right now that like bounce. Make sure that if the enemy team has spellcasters who are casting spells, you do not want your team close together when they're going to get affected. There's a lot of dispel effects in this game that are really, really, really good and are going to be really positive against enemy spellcasters. However, I think a lot of that is Baldur's Gate 2. Baldur's Gate 1 and Baldur's Gate 2 are like two different beasts. Baldur's Gate 2 really gets into higher level D&D spells, where Baldur's Gate 1 doesn't even touch the surface of it. I like to think of Baldur's Gate 1 like the beginning of your adventure and Baldur's Gate 2 like the end of it, so makes sense. Once you get things like mirror image, blur, slow, haste, stone skin, you're going to be moving into a much better category of gaming. You're going to be enjoying it a lot more, especially once you can speed your team up, man. Oh my god. Once you can speed your team up, it's going to feel a lot better. My battles in Baldur's Gate 2 go so fast. It's honestly a good and a bad thing.
Who says what?
Heldern, you're doing so great. You're doing so great, babe. Heal up. Heal up. Go for this guy in the back.
Need something? What do you want?
He's trying to get out of it, but don't let him.
I am ready.
Okay, we're gonna do this. Oh my god.
You point. I point.
Heal again. There are battles in Baldur's Gate 2 where I will get my butt handed to me in like less than 5 seconds. It's unbelievable. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked the video. I hope this was a good user-friendly tutorial. I didn't want to overwhelm you with too much information, but I also wanted to give you a fair amount of information so you didn't feel like going into this game was, you know, a lot. I felt overwhelmed playing and it was really nice getting tips and tricks, but it was a lot, but just because it was such a different type of game than something I was used to. I'm so glad more and more people are getting into games like this. I'm so glad that Baldur's Gate 3 got me into Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, man. I'm so happy for it. Like the most happy. I had a lot of fun making this video, so thank you for watching. Feel free to like and share tips in the comments. I would love to hear some tips and tricks that I probably missed because I know I missed so much. And if you would like to catch me live playing isometric CRPGs, you can follow us on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/merudes. If you watched all the way to the end and you are starting your Baldur's Gate 1 journey, I hope you have a lot of fun. I hope it is everything that you wanted out of it and more. I hope the beginning of the game doesn't deter you, and I really hope that you love it as much as I did. Enough to maybe make a YouTube channel and multiple YouTube videos about it. Now have a very good rest of your day. I hope to see you on the channel, and bye!